More important than the new Pope, everybody. Calm down. Today's my birthday.
It's your birthday.
Way bigger news than the Pope. I know, right? Who cares about the Pope anymore? It's James Parker's birthday. This guy I sort of know because he tells me jokes on the radio and makes fun of the news. Look, I only bring this up really quickly because at the end of the show, we're going to do a segment where I read from the feedback here because, look, I'm 48, all right? I don't like admitting that. And I feel like, I pretty much know everything. So I know that's funny to people that are like 10 years older than me or 20 years older than me. So if you're older than me, call in or send me an email or Facebook message and say what advice you have for me. What do I not know yet? What do I need to know? What's this next phase of life have in store for me? But no, we'll compile a bunch of the feedback and that's what we'll do in the last segment of today's show. But I would love to hear your advice as an old geezer from someone who's just a little bit older than me on what I need to know about being 48. All right, now to the new Pope. The new Pope, first American Pope. So that's kind of cool, I think. I don't know. But for some reason, there's just so much funny stuff that has already come about this Pope. It's like, James, it just happened not even an hour ago. I know, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Listen, I've got jokes, okay? I'm a Protestant. I was raised Baptist. My mom's entire family is Catholic. The Irish side, they're super Catholic. My great-great-great-grandfather came to East Texas and built the first Catholic church in Upshur County. The Hispanic side of my family, they're all Catholic, and I have to go to the weird Catholic funerals every once in a while. So it's not like I have disrespect for Catholics at all. But it's just weird as a Protestant, as a guy who didn't grow up Catholic and experience this on a regular basis. I have a lot of questions. So if you want to explain to me as a Catholic to a little farm boy Protestant what the heck's going on, I'd love to hear it. But hang on. We got some jokes. First off, welcome to the birthday edition of The James Show. This is your monologue for the Pope, Leo XIV. Now, Pope Leo is from Chicago, so I think Leo is short for Leroy. No? Now, his real name is Robert Francis Prevost. So I guess his name really should be Pope Bobby Frank, isn't that? That doesn't sound real sanctified. But I think it's entirely inappropriate that they picked a guy whose age is 69. That's a little childish. But he seems pretty laid back for a pope. I saw on the TV he immediately celebrated with a keg stand. Yeah, he's the first American pope. That's pretty cool. I like the sound of that. But I think that means communion will now be done with McDonald's French fries. So some changes already. Also, being from Chicago, he's the first pope with a Glock under his robe. So kind of like the sound of that. And the Chicago Pope just got done negotiating with the Cardinals. So now I hear the Bears are getting Kyler Murray. Oh, non-sports fans, that's an Arizona Cardinals quarterback joke. But really, I get caught off guard by the little things, being just an ignorant little Baptist. Bro, was the Pope wearing a yarmulke? That's what it looks like to me. I don't know. I don't know any better. I'm not a world-traveled guy. You're just listening to some poor kid who crawled out of the forest in East Texas here. I thought Jews only wore yarmulkes. This guy looked like he's wearing like sort of maybe a little bit bigger than a yarmulke. It's like a XL yarmulke. Does it have a name that I don't know about? Because I don't know these things. I don't know. We might every once in a while put our choir in robes, but to have like these guys just on a regular Friday walking around in robes all day, every day, we think that's weird. We think the hats and the ornate decoration of your church is just something we're not used to. I mean, it's not necessarily weird. It's just unfamiliar. So we'll keep an eye on him, though, because Twitter is already raging about how he's a liberal. So, I don't know. They're showing him some old tweets where he thinks Trump's awful and he thinks J.D. Vance is awful. And I think that's kind of typical for the last few. But I think all the popes in my entire life have sort of leaned left. And that was what was so interesting about the relationship supposedly between Pope John Paul and Ronald Reagan, and where they teamed up to get rid of communism. So I really don't know how much this overlaps in my political world, because I don't ever listen to the Pope. But I do kind of like the idea of the first American Pope. I didn't know until today that we didn't have an American Pope before. Surprise, we never had an American Pope? We've had the nuclear bomb for almost 100 years, and they still didn't give us a pope. But I think, could this be a sign of like America's resurgence? Isn't this like an honor being bestowed upon America that the old guard from the old world thinks that a dude from Chicago via Peru is your next pope? I'll tell you what I did love. I thought this was so cool. When he came out, he was just doing Latin. Now, for a guy who's sort of like a Romophile, is that a word? I think I invented a word. I have Romophilia. That doesn't sound right. Sounds like a disease. I really like Rome. He came out and he was speaking the Latin, and I think that's what's really cool.
Con tutti voi.
Yes, patrios con tutti voi, whatever. Peace be with you. Is that what that is? I was trying to learn something.
Fratelli, sorelle carissimi. Questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto, il buon pastore.
Man, that sounds so serious. But I love that because that's a language from 2,000 years ago that they held on to. And it's a dead language. No, it's not a dead language. That's so cool that they held on to the Latin there. Because now it's kind of become a universal language. It used to be the language of the Romans, or really the Latin tribe in the Italian peninsula. But now it's spread across to where, like, I think when my mom was growing up, she used to do mass, Catholic mass in Latin, and she knows a bunch of Latin. And my Miss Parker was actually raised in, New Orleans, so that's
Miss Parker.
A Catholic family she had down there, and she knows a little bit of Latin. So I'm kind of jealous. It's not so fun being ignorant all the time. All right, coming up next, if you have any advice for me for my birthday, I'll take it. But the first American Pope, huh? Let's ask Matt Lamb about it. He's going to be our Catholic reporter for the day, editor for the College Fix, on what this new Pope means for America, coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. This is Jay in Frisco. You're on WBAP. What's on your mind?
Hey, sir. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
My advice is, if you don't have one, you need to get one, a grandkid. They are awesome.
That would be kind of gross because my kids aren't old enough to have kids yet, but I get your point. I am really looking forward to the grandkid phase. In fact, I was thinking in estate planning, I have a will. I got a will when my kids were born, and I have 4 kids. I'm already thinking about revising my will to where they don't get anything. It leapfrogs them and goes to whatever grandkids they spit out, because they've gotten enough out of me, and I don't want them to get another cent. But I'm looking forward to the grandkids because I think I would be more generous to those guys.
Yes, they are much better than our kids, and that is a genius move right there, sir.
What a sweet thing to say, that came from a guy. I expect, sensitivity and fully developed human emotions more so from the female callers, but I guess Jay has it all put together. Thank you. That's great birthday advice, Jay in Frisco. All right, my next guest wears a couple of hats. He's the editor, editor of the College Fix and a contributor to LifeSite News, and he's going to give us a little bit of help on what to expect from this new Pope. Welcome, Matt Lamb, to the James Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay, so as a Protestant, as a guy who doesn't keep up with Catholic stuff at all, what do I need to know about the new Pope, Matt?
So Pope Leo XIV, he used to be a bishop in Peru. Prior to that, he's actually from Chicago, and I found this out just before this interview. He's from the south suburbs. He grew up actually not too far from where I'm doing this interview now. His dad was the superintendent of a small Catholic grade school my grandpa and my mom and my uncle went to. So I'm going to claim him as a guy from the south suburbs of Chicago. He grew up actually in Dalton, Illinois, which is across the street from where I was married in Indiana. But your listeners in Dallas probably don't care much about personal things in Indiana and Illinois. So he's 69 years old, which is he could be the Pope, obviously, for a decade.
Nice.
And he was appointed by Pope Francis to be the administrator of the Diocese of Chiclayo. He is an Augustinian. He ran...
All right, hang on. You're blowing past this. What's an Augustinian?
Sorry, so he is from the Augustinian religious order named for St. Augustine. And he also oversaw the dicastery of bishops, which this is the...
Bro, I don't know what a dicastery is. I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah. All good. So he helped pick the bishops for the world under Pope Francis. So he had a quick rise in the past couple years, and now, of course, he'll be the Pope for probably many decades, or a couple decades, I should say.
All right, so what makes the Augustinians different than other orders?
So there's different orders that have different interests.
Right, like I've heard of the Jesuits and Augustinians, but I don't know the difference in any of these.
The Augustinians are a little more focused on the intellectual. The Jesuits are known more for being liberal. For shorthand, Pope Francis was a Jesuit.
Well, hang on. Liberal's a loaded term. Do you mean like the American political sense, or like when we talk about creating a liberal democracy elsewhere in the world? Because outside of the United States, liberal usually means what the word liberal means. Here in America, it doesn't.
Absolutely. So more in the political sense. So Pope Francis talked a lot about the climate and the excesses of capitalism. However, both Pope Francis and the new Pope have both been critical of transgender ideology, which is a good sign because I think that is sort of a global issue, but it's certainly an issue here in America. So appropriately, our first American Pope may address that issue further.
How different is he from the previous guy? It sounds like the same thing.
Right. So that's something we'll have to see. Certainly he was picked by Pope Francis, so we assume they think alike. However, in the past, Pope Francis was made a cardinal by Pope Benedict. And so we can't just judge someone based off who picked them, of course, because the cardinals, the people who voted for Pope Francis, were picked by what we would call more theologically conservative traditional popes. Pope Francis was more theologically liberal, and so we'll see. Of course, today was just the first day, but I think, like I said, gender ideology will be one of those issues that the Pope will continue to focus on. But that's just my best guess.
All right, we're talking with Matt Lamb. He's with the College Fix and LifeSite News about the new Pope. Here, another question, and please just pardon my ignorance. Not in the not in the insult term, just I don't know. So the Pope came out today, and it looks like he was wearing a yarmulke, maybe something a little bit bigger than a yarmulke. That's not a yarmulke, is it? Do y'all have a name for that?
Yes, it is not a yarmulke. I have to look. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what it's called, but he did.
It has some sort of fancy Latin name?
Yes, exactly.
Like the Latin name for doily or something?
Something like that. He was also wearing something called the mozzetta, which is that traditional covering. It's not a shawl, but that's the easiest way to picture it if you're not looking at him right now. And that is a good sign because Pope Francis stopped wearing it. He wanted the more traditional cassock, the sort of white robe that he would wear. And so this is a good sign. And he also picked the name of Pope Leo XIV. Pope Leo XIII was sort of an intellectual giant at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century. And so that is a signal that he might be returning more to traditional Catholic teaching, where I think Pope Francis caused a lot of confusion on issues like LGBT issues and some other topics. So this could be a good sign.
So why do they change their name? You know, like I know Roman emperors used to do that too, but why can't he just be Pope Bob?
Yeah, he could. Someone actually pointed out that it was, of course, the first American Pope was named Bob, but they actually don't have to change their name. But the idea is that they are taking on a new role, almost starting a new life as Pope. They're leaving their past life, even though they, of course, remain a priest, and they remain, in fact, a bishop, because he's the Bishop of Rome. They are starting a new life. So in the Catholic Church, for example, when if you become a nun, religious sister, you often take a new name for the same idea that you are starting a new life and you're leaving your past life behind.
Yeah, well, look, you say that like it's normal. Matt Lamb, that's like I'm Baptist. Our preacher's name, Scott. It's Scott. There's no fancy name. It's a lot less ceremonial, and there's a lot less pageantry around it. So this is wild to watch for someone who's not familiar with this. I really appreciate you walking me through some of this.
Yes, thanks for having me on.
All right, there he is, Matt Lamb from the College Fix LifeSite News, helping us understand what the heck's going on with this new Pope thing. Catholics, don't think I'm an idiot. I just haven't been exposed to this, and it is kind of embarrassing being this vulnerable and admitting things you don't know in a public sphere like this. So give me a bit of a break. I think I have some birthday advice from Steve in Weatherford. By the way, it is my birthday today. You don't have to get me a present. Here's what I want you to do. In lieu of a present, thank you, Too Loud Crew. In lieu of a present, here's what I want you to do for me today. Just a favor. Listen to all the commercials. Do not turn the channel when the commercials come on. Just leave it here until you get out of the car, or if you're at work listening, just leave it here. And if you're a person who normally flips around, try it. Just leave it here for the rest of the show. That would mean a lot to me. But if you have some birthday advice, I'm soliciting advice from people who are older than me on what I need to know at age 48. Stephen Weatherford, what do I need to know?
Okay, so your kids are going to be moving toward college in the coming years. You'll have to get them a car, keep the title in your name so you have leverage while they're at college. You can convert it to their name when they graduate.
Ooh, that is great advice. That's perfect, because you're right over the target. These are things that I'm thinking about. My oldest kid is 14, and so I'm thinking next year, there's driver's ed, and we got to start thinking about a car, and, he'll probably just take my 10-year-old Toyota, and I'll get something newer. I'll never get a new car, I don't think. But, yeah, keep it in your own name so you have leverage, so if they start screwing around, you can yank the car out from under them. Good stuff. Is that what you did?
Yes, sir. We raised 8.
All right. Well, I was thinking maybe you're regretting not keeping it in your own name because there were some negative consequences from it. Perfect advice. What a great birthday present. Thank you very much, Stephen Weatherford.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Coming in to absolutely ruin my birthday is my next guest. I'm not looking forward to this. Not that I don't like her. She's going to be a great guest, and I love her work on Texas Scorecard. But Kambree Nelson has her own little corner of Texas Scorecard where she did just a blistering rundown of how disappointing the Texas legislative session has been. And I want her to bring that same fire to my show. How just god-awful has this Texas legislature been?
This is well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm glad I can make it even worse. No. Well, man, this is like a soap opera. I'm kid you not. This is Republicans in power passing Democrat bills, and everyone's wondering what's going to happen with conservative priorities, stuck on pause, and we're wondering who's actually managing the ship, and I think I figured it out. I think we all know what's figured it out. What's happening in Austin? That's kind of a loaded question right now. Well, what we know right now is we know that none of the serious, stringent conservative bills are going to pass because they're all coming from the freshmen. We know that. We have Dustin Burrows. That is the conservatives, what I call the so-called conservative, sold out, bought and paid for speaker down in Austin. That's basically a puppet for the left. We have election integrity bills that are basically unlikely to get any thing going on down there. We know that, budget controversy. We know that this is an allegation. I'll say that Burrows allowed Democrat-written budget in secret. That happened behind the scenes. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people are wondering what is going to take place in the future is, are they going to pull the one-liner of we are going to pass the RPT priority bills, basically claim that they are passing these bills, water them down. They're fake Republican bills, and say they pushed an agenda, and like they did the past, we banned a Democrat chair, when in reality, they basically, gave liberals the most powerful grab in the Texas House that they've ever had by basically creating these subcommittees and chairing Democrats and basically giving them, unprecedented legislative influence. But the biggest thing that's happening down in Austin that people don't like to really talk about is we basically have Kamala Harris and Obama basically running the Texas House, and that's Hugh Brady. And Hugh Brady is basically calling the shots down there. He's the one that's telling, Dustin Burrows how to do things.
All right.
So, the latest scandal. That's a little bit of a rundown that's kind of like happening right now.
Right. You really crammed almost your whole last episode into a 2-minute explanation there. But the level of frustration I hear from people who listen to this show, it's totally based in logic. What else can you do besides send a sizable majority of Republicans to the state legislature? If they're not going to enact your political will, the Democrats certainly aren't. So what do the voters do?
The voters have to vote these folks out. And that's the thing, is the voters have to pay attention. And when you have incumbents, and this is strategy, when you have incumbents coming out and saying, you know what, we banned Democrat chairs. You put us in office to ban Democrat chairs, and they're putting the message out that they did that. Their base and their constituents think that they really did. They did that. But what they don't understand is that they created a new position, and that is where they have these new subcommittees. So a lot of folks don't understand that the subcommittees have a lot of power. And that is one of
we don't know how subcommittees work. I'm a talk show host, and I don't know how all that works. But here's
confusing.
Here's what I've attempted to do. I got the list from Brian Harrison. He's the firebrand from down in Midlothian. And so we made a list of the 36 House Republicans who broke with the Republican Party, sided with the Democrats to make Justin Burrows the House Speaker. We have the list. I have it on WBAP.com, and there's even a map for it. So if the listeners go and they know who their representative is, they can see if it's in the alphabetical list. If not, they can look at the map and see if they live in one of the blue districts. I mean, it's colored blue kind of ironically, where one of the turncoats live. And I guess that's about all we can do is just make a list of the people who betrayed the will of their voters and wait until the next primaries.
You have to do that. And the big there's a bigger problem that we have right now is with the endorsements, with Governor Abbott coming out and saying that President Trump is going to endorse all of these folks who voted for school choice. And they're already coming out and saying, I am endorsed by President Trump, which is confusing to the base. And I have to tell these folks that are listening right now, until you see President Trump come out and say that I am actually endorsing these folks, then he has not. Then they are not endorsed by President Trump, and they have to pay attention, especially right now when we have the Democrats and Dustin Burrows coming out full force, as hard as they are right now, against the right and passing liberal bills and basically turning their eye to all these conservative priorities and playing a hardcore game. They're playing Washington, D.C. politics, James. That's exactly what they're doing. They're playing Washington, D.C. politics, and the base and the conservative voters have to pay attention to what is going on, not just necessarily by what they're saying, but they have to pay attention to what's happening in the House, and they have to pay attention to what's going on online, to not just to who is their representative, but to organizations just like Texas Scorecard and to other outlets, and listen to people like you that have people on like Brian Harrison. Brian Harrison is exposing everything that is going on down in Austin right now, and that is the only way that they are going to know, because right now we know PR is huge. It's all about PR, and it's all about twisting the verbiage to get people to think the way that you want them to think. And these guys are really good at this. And I tell you, they have some great people down in the House right now that is good at messaging, and the messaging is very, very confusing.
Right.
And for people, it is very confusing, but this is a strategic, and it's a strategy and a strategic game, and they're playing a very well game.
There's also some personnel problems. Dustin Burrows, Speaker of the House, had to fire one of his major staffers. I only saw the headline. What's going on behind this one, Kambree?
Well, this is the second major blockbuster news when it comes to Dustin Burrows. He had to fire his top legal policy advisor. This was his general counsel. His name is Jimmy Skipton. So he was actually physically escorted out of the Capitol by law enforcement. So this is alleged. Alleged sources are saying that he had power. What he was doing is he was manipulating legislation to manipulate his wife. Interestingly enough, his wife worked for a lobbyist. And that lobbyist is called, the name of the company is Texas Lobbying Partners. And that is one of the main companies for actually Representative Mike Toomey. And he benefited from that.
Well, I'm a man of two minds on this. This sounds like clearly unethical, but also sounds like something that probably happens every day.
Oh, there's backroom deals all the time. I mean, I know there's stories from people from the legislature that they slip notes underneath the door saying, hey, this is what's going to happen here. Of course, this is like a lobbying, pay to play.
So it must be really bad, though, if someone actually got in trouble for it.
Well, here's the question. I'm not an attorney. I don't know what is happening. All I know that he is escorted out of the office. I know that he's belligerent against people. And basically, he was allegedly speaking on behalf, going to chairmen of committees and speaking on behalf of boroughs and advising them on what they need to do. So this story better not go away, because my question is, this is the number one question when I think strategy.
Okay.
What did Dustin Burrows know? When did he know it? Or did the story come out and now Dustin Burrows can't stay quiet anymore? Because I'm sorry,
okay.
Dustin Burrows runs the House. He is the speaker. Everything that happens has to go through him. So is Skipton the fall guy? I mean, all these things go through my head because Skipton can't be calling the shots here. Dustin Burrows does. So I want to know, when did Dustin Burrows know? When did it happen? Who's going to do the investigation? Who's calling for an investigation? I haven't seen any of this happen yet. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen, or are they just going to sweep it underneath the rug?
Yeah, okay. I think we have a couple of questions. I'm going to put you on hold. Yeah. Let's talk to a couple of these guys. Maybe Kambree from Texas Scorecard can give me an assist on answering some of these. Bobby Brownwood, you're on WBAP. Your question.
Yes, I don't understand how Texas and Florida loaded up their massive majorities in the legislatures with rhinos without some kind of conspiracy, some kind of money changing hands. I don't think it just happened naturally. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard for that to happen 36 times inorganically, or I should say organically. So let me ask, is there like a club for growth or some person that's funding all the rhinos out there, Kambree?
Well, there is, or what they figured this out years ago. I actually posted a story on X. This all started, interestingly enough, with Attorney General Ken Paxton. He was running for Speaker of the House. This has been going on for decades. And so he was running for the Speaker of the House in, 2009? This started in 2009. And a band of Republicans gathered together, and they did not want Ken Paxton to be Speaker. So they went to the Democrats and said, hey, let's partner up to ensure that Ken Paxton is not going to be the Speaker of the House. So they voted with the Democrats, and they used that methodology and said, if we get enough numbers, we can basically overpower the conservatives over here. And then that is how it started.
So who are the groups? Because I don't think Club for Growth is one of the groups. But
we have Texans for Lawsuit Reform is one of the folks, the organizations that are funding a lot of these folks behind the scenes. That is the main one, is Texans for Lawsuit Reform, that are funding the Jeff Leach, the Jared Pattersons, the Dustin Burrows, the Halls. All of these folks is Texans for Lawsuit Reform is one of the big organizations.
Kambree, let me. There's another question for us. I'm gonna put you back on hold. Let's ask Greg and Waxahachie. You got a question?
Yes, sir. My question was basically what's going on with the property tax and why right now is a really good time to talk about it, too, because if you'll notice, all your commercial property has a 20% circuit breaker kicking in. And so that means every year your taxes are going to go up 20% on all your commercial property. And your homeowners, they're raising your exemption. That's great, but it's just going to keep going up and going up and going up.
Yeah, Greg and Waxahachie, I think you're going to be disappointed with the answer. Kambree, how have we done on property taxes this session?
Right now, it doesn't look like anything's going to happen with property taxes. I mean, we are going to have a majority in the House to actually get something done when it comes to property taxes. Now, if they do something with property taxes, like I was saying in the very beginning, it is going to be a weak bill. Because they are going to need to pass something. They are going to need to pass something to make it look like it is a Republican priority.
Well, Kambree, that's how I feel about the school choice bill. They gave us the most watered down, what is it, like 1% of the students are going to get to take advantage of this. And then they're doing a victory lap like, we got you school choice. No, you didn't.
Right. It's only 100,000 kids.
Yeah, that's pathetic. All right. Great work. This is Kambree from TexasScorecard.com. Thank you very much. We'll have to have you back on. Keep an eye on those honks in Austin. What a great disappointment they have been. But remember, we do have the rhino list. Oh, and thank you to Brenda, who actually sent me a Facebook message a couple segments ago. I was asking what kind of hat was the Pope wearing, because it looks like a yarmulke, but I know it's not a yarmulke because he's not very Jewish. He's Catholic. She said it's called a zacchetto. A zacchetto. Which I feel silly because I thought that was the special at Olive Garden this week.